This webinar has three sessions mainly. The first session, almost 40 to 40 minutes, Dr. Sujith V. Gopalan will interact with us. And then our project team, Mr. Nidhi as well as Simila, will present on the current project of ties on amphibians, and then 10 to 15 minutes for interaction. Thank you.
Hello. Hello. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Because I already started and I somehow didn't think of unmuting my mic, sorry. A very warm good evening to everyone. It was a wonderful day to see you all on all coming back to listen to frogs. It is very unique to see people around when especially our country was largely focused on larger mammal groups. Now we also focus on lesser species like frogs, ordinates, butterflies and all. It's good to see you around here. We know, before I go into this one, we know every faunal groups plays a large role in ecosystem, and they have a larger role to play. Though it may be the largest elephant to the tiniest creature that you see around, they all have a very large ecological role. And when at that point of view, everything is much more important. So I'll go to my slides for support. Please wait for a moment. Can you see the slide?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's visible.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's good. Thank you. So this is the topic we are trying to discuss today, as it is a frog day. Why are frogs important? This is a question that comes up to everybody's mind when you take any faunal groups into action. Like we have been thinking about many tiger reserves in the country and why is so much amount of money pumped into tiger reserve to conserve them. Similarly, we have some bird sanctuaries. We are having funds to conserve them. So we somehow understand that they are so important that they need to be conserved. And especially when you think we are conserving the larger faunal groups like tigers, elephants, and all, we believe all the species, lesser faunal groups, and all that has come under its umbrella. Like we call elephants an umbrella species, tiger an umbrella species. So all those faunal species that come under them, we believe they are all protected. But the recent understanding of this conservation action has been that it's not as such much protected as you think it is there. Like in tiger, when you go to a tiger, it doesn't mean that it has a good population of tiger. The lesser faunal groups are well protected. So that is a major question that has come up in the recent past 1 decade, that people have been doing a lot of research, because though initially research were focused on large faunal groups, now people are focusing on this lesser faunal group. There are people who are working on amphibians a lot now in our country. There are people who are working on butterflies, ants, termites, spiders, ordinates. So these lesser faunal groups which were not earlier considered are now being taken into consideration, because we now understand that since making boundaries and making protective actions around a conservation area does not protect all the faunal groups within that. So now so when you ask this larger question, why frogs are important and why they need to be conserved, now you need to understand why are they important and how can we conserve that. The question always comes to your mind that how can we conserve a frog? So when you say a frog, it is a big faunal group when it comes to Western Ghats. So slowly I'll try to introduce what frogs are to you, then what is the status of frogs in Western Ghats, what are the diversity of frogs in Western Ghats, how diverse are they in their respect to ecology and behavior and all. So let's go to that initially, and while going through that, I'll show and say to you how different they are and what can we do to conserve them. Okay, so the first first understanding what should we have is that what is an amphibian? So when you say frog, you understand it is an amphibian. Okay, so when you come to see this the frog or something, you will initially what all we studied in the initial classes, we understand that they have a double life. When I say double life, it is not like they can live both in land and water. Maybe our teachers in younger classes might have said to us that frogs are something that can live both on land and water. It's not like that. They have a double life, is meaning that one half of their life cycle they spend in water, other half is on land. So that's why when you say ordinates are indicators of ecosystem health, when you say birds are indicators of ecosystem health, when you say amphibians are indicators of ecosystem health, some of these faunal groups like amphibians, they have a double life. Like one half of the life cycle, they indicate the freshness and quality of the freshwater ecosystem they are living in, and the other half they live on the land and they indicate the quality of the ecosystem they live in. So they are both indicators of freshwater and similarly indicators of the terrestrial ecosystem also. So that is one of the prime thing that when you look to amphibian, that you can come to understand both ecosystems in both ecosystems together. So why it is an evolutionary concept that we believe metamorphosis. That when you say metamorphosis, it's like organism lays its eggs. It has a tadpole stage. Tadpole stage also is classified into different stages based on its growth. Then it goes to adult. So this process is called metamorphosis. So evolution has created this process called metamorphosis, or called this adaptive process called metamorphosis, to make the individual or the organism to be more adapted to the ecosystem they are in, because they will have less competition of food. So if you take human beings or any other terrestrial mammals, since birth we are on the terrestrial ecosystem. So even the child and adult all eats the similar kind of food what is available in the ecosystem. But when you take a frog into consideration, one of the adaptive advantage they have is that they have less competition of food. Like some of the forms of frogs will be in the form of egg, other forms will be in the form of larvae, and the other forms will be in the form of adult. So they are at the same point of time, they will be available in both eggs, larvae, and adult. So that reduces competition to them, and they also increases the survivability of the species. Because if something happened to the aquatic ecosystem, they are survived on land, and something happened to the terrestrial ecosystem. So when I say something disastrous, some poisoning or some temperature increase in the ecosystem suddenly increases, then they are safe in water. If something happens in water, disasters happens in water, they are safe in land. So they have this. We believe that metamorphosis is an advanced adaptation for this organism. And second thing, when you say about frogs, is that, as you understand, apart from mammals, birds and all, frogs are cold-blooded. So they largely rely upon the temperature of their surroundings. They don't have any process for adjusting their body temperature. So even we say we can euthanize a frog by increasing temperature slowly. When I say increasing temperature slowly, you don't have to shoot it up to 50 degrees Celsius. If you could slowly increase the temperature from 30 to 37 to 38 degrees Celsius, you can euthanize a frog. So such is that its condition. And when it comes to frogs, they are normally smooth and they have a very moist skin. So that is one of the, when you generally explain what a faunal group amphibians is, they have smooth skin and their skin is almost moist because they need this cutaneous respiration. So for that, they need the smooth skin. And second thing is, other important thing of them is most of the frogs are web-free. When I say all those features, generally say all those features, you should take one thing into your mind always, that biology is a science of exceptions. You cannot classify an organism based on simple concepts. There is exception for everything. So when you say there are organisms which lay eggs, when you say we say all reptiles lay eggs, there are examples when they give birth. When I say all mammals give birth, there are exceptions when one mammal called platypus lays eggs. So similarly, we believe biology is a science of exceptions. We cannot put them all into one concept and organize into one thing. There is always an exception. Okay. Now, when you say it is amphibians, there are three major divisions in amphibians. So one of the major thing you understand is that amphibians, when you think of amphibians, it is frog. So we call frogs normally, scientifically, we call it as anura. Anura means without tail. Okay, that is anurans. Now there is another form called gymnophia or apoda. So when you say it is gymnophia apoda, the Latin utilization says that it is naked and snake-like. So it doesn't have, so easier way to differentiate a Sicilian, which will look similar to an earthworm or snake. Easier way to differentiate is that From earthworm, you can differentiate it because it will have a vertebral crown. It is a vertebrate. And from snake, you can differentiate at the point that it doesn't have scales. It is smooth and naked, and it is slimy, and it is wet. So it's an amphibian. Okay. Now another form of amphibian is called Urodila or chordata. So it says Urodila or chordata means its tail is evident. It has a tail. So that is salamanders and newts. We only have, we don't know, in India only we have Himalayan newts. We don't have salamanders here. So all salamanders and newts are classified into chordata. So you have Gymnophia, Urodila, and Anura. So our focus will be majorly on Anura. So now when you look at the diversity, you see we have 8,871 species of amphibians in the world. So when I say the total number, it includes Anura, like frogs, Sicilians, and newts and salamanders, the total number. And when you look at the classification among them, almost 7,818 species are anurans. You have 828 species of newts and salamanders, and 225 species of Sicilians, Gymnophians, okay, which are Sicilians normally. So that is a classification. So major share of amphibian diversity comes from frogs, anurans, okay. When it comes to India, you have almost 447 species, of which 406 species are anurans. We have one Himalayan newt, so that is put as one. And then we have 40 Sicilian-like organisms, snake-like organisms. So that is the diversity there. When it comes to Western Ghats, you see India also, if the maximum diversity of frogs are harbored in Western Ghats and Northeast India. So we see at Western Ghats from 447 species, 252 species are inside Western Ghats. And in that, 226 species are anurans. We don't have salamanders and newts in Western Ghats. We have 26 Sicilian species in Western Ghats. Okay, when it comes to Kerala, the species number has been increasing. Everywhere it is increasing. When you look at the total amphibian diversity, in 10 days, you'll see the changes in there itself. Not in 10 days, even 1 day there will be changes because species are being described every day. In Kerala, now we have 185 species of amphibians. Of that, 168 are anurans. You have 17 Gymnophia species or Sicilians in Western Ghats. So this is the diversity. So our focus would be on frogs of Western Ghats. Okay, because Kerala also, your major frog diversity is contributed by the Sahyadri mountain ranges or the Western Ghats. Okay. Now, what is important of Western Ghats? We do understand that Western Ghats is a biodiversity hotspot. We all know it's a biodiversity hotspot because it has already lost a good amount of its vegetation. They have a lot of endemic species and all that. We understand about Western Ghats. And you know it is starting from Gujarat to the south in Kanyakumari. This long chain of mountains is called Western Ghats. Now, when it comes to anuran diversity, we say Western Ghats is the hottest hotspot of anuran diversity. When you look at anywhere in the world, it is challenging to anywhere in the world that we have most number of amphibians in Western Ghats, and we have some 76 to 80% are totally endemic to Western Ghats. When you say it is endemic, there is no other place in the world where you find the same amphibian. So we do have some amphibians that we share globally, and some we share with Asia, but major species that we find in Western Ghats are all evolved in Western Ghats. So they are not found anywhere else in the world. So that is what we call the Western Ghats the hottest hotspot of anuran diversity. And this makes it the most challenging to confirm amphibians because they are found in a wide range of habitat in Western Ghats. They adapted to every altitudinal gradient, every altitudinal. When you look at Western Ghats, it is like if you have from, if you take from the Kerala coast here, if you take it from the zero altitude, we have almost 2,600 feet up to there. The altitude is there. If you divide the altitude into multiple sections, each altitude can harbor multiple microhabitat or habitat or microhabitat. So there are frogs which have evolved to each type of this microhabitat or habitats. So that increased the diversity of Western Ghats. So, so that is it. So when challenges come, it is not easy to conserve amphibians of Western Ghats because they are in multiple pockets, they are in multiple forms, they are adapted to multiple climatic zones, they are adapted to multiple habitats. So we have to look at all those things to conserve each species. So we cannot apply a general strategy, a blanket strategy to conserve amphibians. We look at each ecosystems and strategize accordingly. That is the most challenging thing in conserving amphibians of Western Ghats. So now let's move forward. When you look at anurans, we have normally two forms of endurance are there, which we generally understand that though it is not scientifically much understood, generally we classify it into frogs and toads. So when you say frogs, they are much more beautiful, smooth skin and moist. But when you look at toads, they are little dry, their skin is leathery, and you have so many parotid glands. You have some projections on the skin. Those are all parotid glands or some types of glands which can secrete. So normally, to understand one thing, the frogs have defense mechanisms. These secretions are all defense mechanisms of frogs. The secretions are evolved like if you look at Western Ghats frog, they have secretions that has been evolved to counter microorganisms and other things in their ecosystem. So that is the most challenging thing. They don't have any secretions to counter organisms that come from outside India. They are co-evolved with organisms here, so they have all the strategies to counter organism that is found in their ecosystem and around. And the underbelly of frogs doesn't have any secretion. So I have some videos, interesting videos where frogs take out the secretions from the back and rub it to their underbelly, because the underbelly doesn't secrete secretions. Okay. Now, when it comes to toads, I said, I said it is not possible to blanketly say a conservation action plan or habitat or understand amphibians. We will not have at least look at some different faunal groups and different families to understand what is their habitat and how different are they from other amphibians. So I'll go it by family wise and sub classifications. So I'll not much touch into taxonomical part, because it's not possible to make you understand taxonomy so easily, because there are complications in that. But we'll generally try to understand their ecosystem and ecology now in general. So toads, as if I said, normally we find toads in roads and all. Normally they are generally found on roads and all. And their characteristic is that they are much more adapted, because they can have some drier skin. They have shorter legs. They have a leathery texture of the skin, and they have bigger glands on the surface, on the skin surface, which can secrete. So we have three major genus of frogs: Dataphrynus, Gathophryn, and Pedostipus. So interesting thing of Western Ghats is that we have two genus of frogs which has typically evolved in Western Ghats. So one is that to avoid competition, one has climbed a tree. So there is a species of tree-dwelling frog called as Pedostipus tuberohumerus. Tuberculosis, so not tuberhumerus, tuberculosis. Pedostipus tuberculosis. So this is a tree toad. We call it as a tree toad because it spent much of its time on tree. Only during breeding season, it comes down the tree and it makes calls, attracts males, and breed in water and go up the tree. So this is entirely a tree-dwelling toad. Normally, we don't find toads in the trees. Normally, they are ground-dwelling species. But this has evolved in Western Ghats to be a tree-dwelling species. Now, the other one, interestingly, the other frog what we find is called Gathophryn ornata. This is a very beautiful frog with a very shiny black body, and underneath of the belly, you can find some fire red colorations, fire red and yellow and red colorations on the underbelly and all. But this species, this has evolved to be a torrent frog. So they live in the sides of very fast flowing torrent streams. So they are two entirely differently evolved species. One has gone up to 3. The other one is a ground dwelling species, and the other one is a stream dwelling species. Okay. Now, leaving apart the toads, when it comes to frogs, we have multiple genera in this frogs. Like we have 24 genus of frogs in this when you say frogs, smooth skin frogs. Of them, 159, we have all 159 species in that, and some of this genus and some of these families are ancient endemic lineages in Western Ghats, totally evolved after the formation of Western Ghats. So I hope you understand the formation of Western Ghats. We understand that India was not a part of Asia at some point of time. If you take some 200 billion years ago, India was part of Australian coast. India was in the Australian coast, and from there, while it moved away from the Australian coast, the Western Ghats was formed. Western Ghats is older than Himalayas because India came some 60 million years before it rammed into Asia, and Himalayas are formed. So Himalayas are newly formed mountains, and Western Ghats are older ones. So we have some 250 million years of evolution of this genus of frogs. I'm saying when 250, you should also hear that is 250 million years of evolution. That is a time scale. So if you look at a gene of this frog, each nucleotide variations may take 1 million of years of evolution. So evolution it takes place very slowly, and like one base pair change take some million years. So that is how this frog. So they have much of the frogs that you see in Western Ghats are 250 to 230 million years of evolution they have gone through. Now, one of the major contributors of this annuran diversity in Western Ghats is called this one genus called Rhacophoridae. So this genus contains tree and shrub frogs. Okay, this is one of the most vibrant genus of frogs in Western Ghats because we find multiple colors. I mean, all types of colors you find in this type of frogs. Some of the frogs you will not believe it is there in Western Ghats. So they are found in all types of colors and all types of ecosystems. Like if you take from, they are found ground to the tree canopies. They are found in all types. They adapted to multiple ecosystems and microhabitats all through these habitats. Okay. Now, this one of the challenging thing of amphibian taxonomy in Western Ghats is that they evolved in multiple time and evolved in the same type of habitat. So there some are sympatric in evolution, other are allopatric in evolution. So all types of evolutions are there. So this makes some of the most cryptic species ever in the world. So like this is one of the genus of frog called Pseudophylotus. And if you look at these frogs, you can hardly differentiate them based on anything because they all look very similar. But they are actually three different species. One is Pseudophylotus wienerdensis, one is Amboli, and other one is Cani. So they only have geographical variations. Like Cani is already found in south of Changota Gap, near to Trivandrum high altitudes. Our wienerdensis is found from down from Trivandrum to Kasaragod, and Amboli is found above that, north of Kasaragod, north of Wayanad and Kasaragod area. You find Amboli, and I mean even there are some distribution north of Wayanad also. So they are very similar looking. It is hard to differentiate them in the field. We only are blessed that some of them have geographical ranges, but Amboli and Cani, Amboli and wienerdensis and Amboli and Pseudophylotus, Amboli and Pseudophylotus wienerdensis and Cani and Pseudophylotus, they have range overlap also. But so that makes it very difficult to understand them in field, to identify the species in field. Now, other thing which makes it more challenging is that each frog has multiple color variations. We say color morphs. So this is a frog species called Pseudophylotus wienerdensis. We have recorded 21 different color morphs of this species. They come up with 21 different colors, starting from red, black, green, orange, the chestnut colors, and all different colors are available. So you need to understand something is that for frogs, color is not a taxonomical feature. You cannot use color to identify frogs in wild. They come up in all different colors. They have quite good ability to adapt to different microhabitats. They can change color to a certain extent. So we have a frog. Remember, when I was doing my research in Rajiv Gandhi Center for Biotechnology, we collected a frog species. The frog's name is Rhaostesis acroparlagi. Its common name is variable bush frog. It is named variable bush frog because it is found in multiple colors. So I collected one green color of this frog from Ponmudi Hills here. I brought back to my lab. So we saw the specimen in lab. I kept it in my lab and I want to go out to take my camera or something. When I came back, it is almost turning to be brown in color. So that is their ability. They can have a remarkable ability to change color also. So that makes all these taxonomical features very complicated for a common man. But if you try to understand the taxonomical key, it is easy also. But you need to spend some quite good amount of time for that. Now, if you look at this one, these are some of the endemic green frogs of Western Ghats. Okay, one is acroparlagi, another one is acroparlagi. As if I said, it is a variable bush frog. It itself, we have recorded 8 color morphs of this frog species, starting from orange to green. And this is another frog species called Bedomi and Jeremy. And interesting thing is that there are more green colored frog species in Western Ghats. I mean, the bush frog species in Western Ghats. But these three somehow share their range. They are seen in there is a range overlap, like 2 or 3 species can be seen together also. So that makes it quite difficult. So if you, don't think that it is not at all possible to identify them in field, but these same color, same size, similar patterns make them quite difficult. But there is one thing that you can help to identify frogs in Western Ghats is that call. They all call very differently, as if each bird call is unique to a bird. Each frog calls very uniquely. So if you try to understand, because all these frogs are active in night time only, so you identify frogs majorly based on their calls. So when they call, you understand this is Jeremy, this is called a Bedomi, this is called a Acroparlagi. So that way it is quite possible to understand. So acoustics of frogs as a taxonomical feature, they are unique to each frog. And there are another some set taxonomical features like their webbing, the difference in size of fans and all, their eye color, iris color. These are all different features that makes it easy for identifying frogs in wild. Now, if you look at normal scenario, we understand that Western Ghats or Kerala is blessed with monsoon. We have this southwest monsoon coming in June, we have July, and then August. We have torrential rains, and our frog species that has evolved in Western Ghats are tuned to this rainfall. So they expect this rains and do it accordingly. But there are interestingly some frog species which understands that this is a very busy time. Lot of species will breed now. Our tadpoles and our froglets will not have enough food, so we need to have a different strategy. So they have evolved to breed in pre-monsoon showers. Like when we have torrential rains, we get good summer rains in end of April to May. At that time, these frog species like Mercurana, this frog species is adapted to Meristica swamp frogs, and another frog is called Kadalar swamp frog because it has been recorded from Kadalar in Munnar. So these are all swamp frogs. Okay. So they have adapted to pre-monsoon showers. So their adaptation is such fine-tuned that if you look at the breeding of Meristica swamp frog, they breed in pre-monsoon showers. Like when you have this May rains, comes up in summer rains, the ground gets wet. It's not a puddle of water or something like that. They may get wet enough. So these frogs, they live in high in canopy of trees. They come down, they dig the ground, lay their eggs, they breed. So you look at the above one, the brown one is the male and the green one is the female. They mate, the females dig the ground to an extent, lay their eggs and bury the eggs. And then they all climb back to the canopy of trees. Then only you can see this frog species only in the next pre-monsoon time. Until then, they are all on the top of the canopy. That is why this frog was not described until 2014. It was a hidden gem until 2014 because nobody came to know, because we were looking for frogs. Normally, we understand that we set out for frogging or herpetofauna works in monsoon because we understand our breeding behavior, breeding thing are all associated with this monsoon things. But there are frogs which breeds in pre-monsoon. So we missed this frog species. We missed both of these frog species actually. So their fine tuning is such that they lay their eggs and bury their eggs, and they know that after some 10 to 20 days, the soil is wet, the eggs are fine until then. They know after the 10 or 15 or 20 days, it is going to rain, and all these low-lying areas of Meristica swamp where they have buried their eggs is going to be submerged in water. So when the eggs hatch out, the tadpoles come out as a free living tadpoles come out, and they are safe. They can eat food in that ecosystem, and they can again climb back to tree when they are dead. So that is a level of fine tuning of evolution for these species to evolve in Western Ghats. Okay. Kadalar swamp frog also follows the same methodology, though they are not much a tree dwelling. They are tree dwelling species, not a much more canopy dwelling species as the Meristica swamp frog. Okay. Now there are certain other group of frogs in the same genus. They are entirely based to live in reeds. So we have many type of reeds in Western Ghats. Like one of the famous species that we find here is called this one, Rauosus oaklanderi, called oaklanderi reed frog. It is named after the reed, oaklanderi reed, that you find in Western Ghats. So these frogs, they cannot drill into the reeds, but when other insects, such insects drill into reeds and make small holes, they go inside the hole, they breed there, and they lay their eggs there. So if you look at all those reed frogs, you look at their eyes, they are asterix and very colorful and very shiny eyes, because they live in reeds, inside reeds which are darker. So to see each other, their eyes need to be very bright. So for that they evolved a very bright and shiny eye. So all these frogs, they are at different, they live at different ecosystems, they live at different altitude. Like if you look at ours is oaklanderi, it is seen from some 0 to some 400 to 1000 meters above sea level. That is the altitudinal range also, maybe 1100 also. If you look at this Rauosus chalosodus, it is found only south of Chengota Gap, and it is found above 1300 meters, reeds in above 1300 meters. If you look at Uttamani frog, it is found only in Munnar, that area. Anamale subclusters of Western, Western Ghats is divided into 7 subclusters, and this Uttamani is found in Anamale subcluster. Rauosus Manohari again is only seen from some 1100 to 1300 meter in altitude. And this reed frog, Rhaursus flavocularis, it is found at very high altitude, like some 1,500 to 1,800 meters above sea level in anomaly subcluster. They are found in Periyar Tiger, high altitudes of Periyar Tiger Reserve, and all those areas from Periyar Tiger Reserve to up to north of the Chengota Gap. That area that frog is found, largely distributed, and there it is also distributed in a very high altitude, some 1,300 meters to above. And they all are adapted to a life in reeds. If you look at the phylogenetic tree, all these frogs will cluster together. They have all evolved in from one single individual, and they have diversified into different ecosystems, though they all live in reeds. Now, another interesting group of these frogs are frogs of sky island ecosystems. So when I say sky, you understand when it is an island, right? An island is something that has been entirely separated by water. Three sides you have water, and it is entirely separated. Sky islands is also the similar concept. Similar concept that when you say it is a sky island, you take areas of altitude from 1,300 to above. Like you take an altitude from 1,300 to 2,600 meters above the sea level. So it's a top of a hill. So top of a hill. And what is different, what makes it similar to island is that since these are evolved to just that climatic zone from 1,300 to 1,800, they cannot come down the hill and climb another hill to breed within individuals. So each hillocks on upper hillocks is evolving to be different species. It's independent evolution. There is no mixing of gene pool because each hills are separated. And these species cannot come down from this 1,200, 1,300 to 2,600, that climatic zone. They cannot come down the climatic zone because they will all die. They are very sensitive to heat also. So they are independently evolving on each hillock. They don't have any mixing of gene pool. But what is more threatening for the species is climate change. Like we understand that, though this concept is very familiar in other countries, we do understand that frogs and every species have an altitudinal shift. Like previously, we do understand the temperature is going up. So frogs that is living from 600 meters to some 1,000 meters in that altitudinal range, they'll have to shift their altitude to some 800 to 1,100 to get the same climatic condition because the temperature has gone up. So to get a much cooler temperature, they have to shift their altitude some 100 to 200 meters above from there, we're already there. So if you look at this species called Rhaursus resplendens, this red frog species, it is found the highest altitudes of Munnar. Like you find it from some 2,000 meters above sea level, not below that. So they are all on the apex of the hills, grasslands and in the grasslands. So that area, if you look at these hillocks, the top of these hills, these grasslands are always froggy, and that is the moisture condition they have. And these are all found in grasses, in big grasses. So they breed there, they lay eggs. And another interesting thing of much of the species called, though not the big frogs, the smaller bush frogs, one of the interesting breeding behavior of these bush frogs is that they don't have a metamorphosis. They don't undergo metamorphosis. The frog lays eggs, and from eggs directly coming out is a froglet. They don't have intermediate tadpole stage. So that is one of the interesting thing of the evolution investigation, that these frog species called Rhaursus and Pseudophylotus, as if I said Pseudophylotus wienerdensis, Carney, Amboli, and this Rhaursus species, they don't have a tadpole stage. So they lay their eggs, these eggs hatch out into a tiny froglets. So they don't have tadpole stage, they miss this tadpole stage, direct develop. So we call them direct developing frogs. So from frogs, egg to froglet, that is the condition. So one of the major issue for these frogs is that they are already on the top of the hillocks. They don't have anywhere to go to make an altitudinal shift. So if temperature is rising at this speed, there is a point of time when it becomes, because it's rising at a very higher rate. So these frogs or other species, they don't get enough time to get adapted to this rising temperature. So only thing that they face is that extinction. So if temperature goes up at this rate, it's sure that these species will go extinct because they don't have a chance for this altitudinal shift. They cannot shift their altitude to a cooler areas to live by. Okay. Now these frogs are very similar, and they have they evolved in the similar condition to all other frogs that you find across the world. They are mostly pond, swamps, grasslands, rice fields. These are the areas where they normally breed and their habitat. Okay, and that some of the frog species are very familiar to you, like this green frogs that float on water, and the smaller browner ones that when you see they floating in water with you see their eyes up in the water. They will be floating in a muddy small pools, puddles and all, you find them. As childs, you might have thrown stones at them and all. So these two frogs are familiar to us. Similarly, we have another species called Spirotheca. They also come in the similar to the other Euphyllictus species. Only interesting thing is that these species breed in retrieving monsoon. They don't breed in a they don't breed in pre-monsoon. They don't breed in monsoon, but they breed in retrieving monsoon. We have retrieving monsoon coming back from October to November. That is the time they breed. So these are also not, much of them are not endemic to Western Ghats, but still there are some species which are endemic to Western Ghats. And Minervaria species are normally called as rice field frogs, called rice frogs also, Pagevaria frogs, or rice frogs or paddy field frogs, because they are found, that is the habitat they seek. And Hoplobatrachus tigrinus, commonly called as bullfrog, Indian bullfrog, are the largest species of frog that you find in Kerala or India. And this is an invasive species to other places also, wherever it has gone, because if you look at the frog's diet, they can eat upon anything. That makes them one of the prime member of the ecosystem, because they can feed on anything that they can grab, anything that they can bite and swallow. They'll eat anything. There are instances where they eat other frogs, they eat snakes, they eat small frogs, small birds. So whatever they get, they are able to swallow, they will swallow it. So this is one of the most potent invasive species which goes to other continent. Like it has been declared an invasive species in Andaman and Nicobar, because this frog species was lot into wildlife trade, because their legs was a delicacy at some point of time, and that is why they are in a scheduled species, because at one point of time in coastal belts of Kerala, their legs was a delicacy. People used to use it largely. They were caught largely, but recently that has been stopped because it is well protected under Schedule 4 of Wildlife Protection Act. Okay. Now, Ranidae, this we call it as true frogs, because they exhibit all characters of what we describe a frog as. And here you have one species called Clinotarsus scoticus. Interestingly, this is one of the frog species that you find everywhere when you go to the Ghat area, because they breed in larger lakes. You find this schooling groups of tadpoles, large black tadpoles flowing through this water, going around in this water, and it has one of the largest tadpoles in Western Ghats. So what is important of this frog is that it's one of the prime prey base for much of the predator species in Western Ghats. Like if you look at many birds, look at smaller reptiles and all, this frog species forms one of the important prey base in Western Ghats, because they are found in such large numbers. The tadpoles in water, adults in frogs, and subadults. And once the tadpoles come out, they are in such large number that they hatch out at subadults, and they start migrating back to forest. So this is one of the important prey base. So that makes them very important in the food chain, that they are one of the important predators, and they are also, they are important predators because they are known to control mosquitoes, other insect groups, and all. They are controlling that. Similar way, they are becoming a good prey base for much of the predators of Western Ghats. So they play a large role in sustaining the ecosystem. So one other species that you find outside the forest in human habitat areas called Hydrophylax malabaricus. In North Malabar, we call this as, in Malayalam, we call it as a Manavati Tavla. So because it has a red shawl-like thing that it puts on its head, it's called as a Manavati Tavla. And this is another frog species that you find across the ponds and lakes on low altitudes and high altitudes of Western Ghats. We call it Indo-Silvirana. We have 7-8 species in Western Ghats. And this Aurantiaca species is just endemic to Trivandrum area. It's only found in Trivandrum areas of Western Ghats. Okay. Now, this is another frog species called microhylid. We call it as narrow mouth frogs. And one of the interesting thing of the frog is that normally all frogs exhibit sexual dimorphism. When you say sexual dimorphism, is that you can identify them from male and female. Males are smaller, females are larger, males are thinner, females are much more bulkier. They evolved in such a way because the males has to climb on the back of females and mount them. We call this amplex. They catch hold of the females and they rub with their legs onto the belly of the frogs to make the females lay eggs. So unlike that frogs, these frogs has alleged sexual dimorphism. You cannot see much color variations male and female frogs, and they have much size differentiation also. So one of the most striking species, or one of the most beautiful frogs of this group, is the galaxy frog, Melanobatrachus indicus. This is one of the most sought after frogs for photographers, macro photographers, because it's look like if you look at the frog, it's like you are looking into a galaxy. You're looking at a galaxy. So that is why its name is galaxy frog, with all those shiny bluish white spots on its black body. It is very beautiful, but it is one of the rarest frog species you find in Western Ghats. It's all over there, but it's very difficult to find it from its microhabitat. You need to have a very deep understanding of its microhabitats, the altitudes, the habitat, then only you'll be able to find the species. That's why it is a hidden treasure for a lot of time. It has been described very long in 18th century. It was described, but not much people have seen this frog in wild. Not much herpetologists have seen this species in wild. So we have some other interesting species like painted bush frog is there. Upadon globulus. This is also a retrieving monsoon breeding frog. Rubras, and this is endemic seen in Wayanad. Mystilus franki, a recently described species. Now the next three families of frog I'm going to speak about, they are totally evolved in Western Ghats. You don't have any relation of any of these frog species anywhere in this world. So they are totally unrelated. Their methodology of breeding, their methodology of prey base, everything is entirely different. They're totally differently evolved because we call these three groups ancient endemic lineages. And there is also a fourth group actually. We call all of them ancient endemic lineages of Western Ghats. And one of them is called this Ranixalidae group. We also called as Indirana. All two genus are there, Indirana and Valcarana species. So one of the interesting features of this frog is that they breed on vertical rock surfaces. They do have a tadpole stage. They lay their eggs. From their eggs, as if you see, eggs are laid on rock surfaces, not in water. From rock surfaces, from the eggs, they hatch out a tadpole. Nowhere it looks like a tadpole because the first thing it develops is the hind legs. Okay, because they are going to leap on this rock surface. They'll leap on this rock surface. But the rock surface should always have a thin film of water because they are all filter feeders. They need this thin filament of water to grab on small substratums and eat, and they feed and they grow like that. And this frog also faces the thing because, as if I said, all frog species in Western Ghats, they evolved to the climatic conditions here. So they understand that there is a pattern for climatic conditions in Western Ghats, that monsoon will come, it will progress until August. You have torrential rains, you'll have steady flow of water, you will have steady filming of water on this rock surface. But if you understand the recent scenarios, you know that we have a rainy season that starts in July. After the initial showers, there is a gap. And when this gap comes, what happens is that these rock surfaces become dry. And when these rock surfaces become dry, all these eggs, larval forms get dried out. So there is somebody is going to say you, any of the faunal species it is increasing, don't ever believe that. There is no condition in our forest where any of the faunal species is increasing in number. All faunal species are decreasing in number. Their population number is going down just because there are n number of scenarios that goes against them. If you look at some species, like you can look at the feral pigeons, you can look at the crows, you can look at the mynas. These bird species may be increasing in number because they are adapted to live with humans. They can feed on the food substances we throw away. They can live in our houses. They can live around our houses. So these numbers are increasing. Apart from that, all other numbers are totally declining at this point of time. Even I'll not agree to elephants or tigers or anything because I've been in field for last 20 years. I do understand. Nothing is increasing, but there are other scenarios taking place in Western Ghats which is causing these problems. Now, the second genus of frog that has totally evolved in Western Ghats, they have some 250 million years of evolution in Western Ghats, is called Nyctibatrachidae. Now, one of the interesting features of this frog is they are only found in streams of Western Ghats. They are, it is like they are very slimy. You'll not be able to catch them because they are always submerged in water, and they are totally evolved to live in this water conditions. Okay, so one of the interesting features this frog shows is that parental care. An interesting thing is that it is not female that shows parental care; it is the male. So as if you see the figure 3, this is how the amplex is done. This is how what we call amplexing is. So when it is amplexed, the female is pushed and it lays eggs. Once it is laid their eggs, it is the male who guards the eggs. Not only guards the eggs, you need to keep these eggs wet. So all these eggs are laid on some leaf which is overlying the water, or this is floating over the water. So these male frogs go down the water They dip their body in water and come up and they wet these eggs. So when they wet these eggs, they keep the eggs moist and wet. So that is the role of the male. So he goes at regular intervals, he dips his body in water and climbs up to the egg, and he wets the egg. And once the egg is wet, it starts growing, metamorphosis happens, the tadpoles hatch out, and when almost tadpoles are ready to emerge, these eggs slowly drop down from there to water. So this is one of the frog species that shows parental care. Now another interesting frog species is called Microsalidae. Commonly they are called as dancing frogs. So as if I said, normally frogs communicate with each other vocalizing. They have an ability to call, and each frog has a unique call so that female understands that the male species is there. It can come around, they can mate and breed. That's how it happens. But this Microsalidae issue is that they live in torrential streams, very torrential streams, fast flowing torrential streams, and it is so loud. So if you go to an airplane airport, what you see is that normally the flight is when the flight goes around, you understand it is a lot noisy. You cannot speak high and make the flight to come around and stay somewhere and all. So what they normally do, they show actions. They show actions to move around and all. That's they have a flagging. They show with the ability of flag that it has to go right, it has to go left, it has to come straight. So they have an action in frog. Similarly, this frog species has evolved the same way. So they know the loud, they have a shrieking noise. They adapted to make much more shrieking noise that can travel more distance. But apart from that, they evolved a strategy called food flagging. So they communicate with the male and female using the food. So they make actions, as if you say, come here, go there. These are we all know, we do understand these actions. Similarly, they have some actions which makes them understand to come and go. So that's why they're called as dancing frog, because they perch on this rock surfaces, large rock surfaces where the streams pass by, and they store actions. So they also call, but rather than call, they make these actions to communicate with the rivals and also with the females. And one of the interesting thing of this frog species is that they have fossorial tadpoles. They have very fossorial tadpoles that can, their tadpoles can be within the stream beds for quite a long time. They can arrest their metamorphosis for some time until the climatic condition is quite good for them to evolve into adults. So these frogs are known to have fossorial tadpoles. So if you look at the tadpoles, unlike other frog tadpoles, they have very strong tail, like eel-like tails, and a very strong snout, so that they can travel through the gravels in the sandbed. Now, the last species or genus of interesting frog is called Nasigabatrachidae. Much of you might have seen this species because they are quite known to people. They're one of the frog species in Western Ghats which triggered amphibian taxonomy of Western Ghats. Because this frog has an interesting science behind that. One of the things that makes this frog interesting is that it neither looks like frog, it neither looks like any other species. It's totally different. It has a very unique morphology. It has a very pointed snout. If you look at its legs, it has a very powerful legs for burrowing. So this species is normally a burrowing species. It spends 99% of its time underneath. They are under the soil. Only it comes out in a very less time to breed. Like when the climatic condition is quite good, when the torrential monsoon starts in July and the climate is quite enough, ample climatic condition is there, rain is there, they come out, breed, they lay their eggs, and they go back to the soil. So they hardly come out of the soil for 1 or 2 days. Apart from the time they are entirely inside soil. So they are known to feed on termites and small earthworms that is under the soil. They don't have a life outside the soil. They are normally found inside soil. But other than this particular life of inside soil, one of the interesting thing of this frog is that this frog explains the Gondwanan continent concept. So we know that all continents were initially together, then they split apart. So this frog, when this frog was initially found, it is not the frog's description what was made it quite interesting. But when this frog was sequenced, when the DNA was extracted with this frog and it was sequenced, one of the interesting things we found out what is that it's the frog's closest relative, closest genetic relative was nowhere found in Western Ghats, nowhere found in India, but it was found in Seychelles. Seychelles, as you know, it's an island close to our African coast. So it was found in Seychelles. So then they understood how its closest relative came in Seychelles. Because as you know, Western Ghats traveled from Australian coast up to Asia merging into Asia. So on the way, these frogs were together until they separated around some 80 million years at the coast of Africa. So at the coast of Africa, Seychelles got separated from India. So after that, India traveled and barged into Asia, hit into Asia, and we became part of Asia. So that is why they have this closest relative there. So if in the other interesting thing is that if you look at the closest relative of this Nasica batrachus, it is nothing similar to this frog. It's a small frog, entirely a bush frog-like species, and this totally different frog. It has evolved to be a burrowing species. So that is the one of the interesting scenario of frogs of Western Ghats. And another interesting character that frog is built is that its tadpole is found in very torrentially fast flowing streams. So they have an ability that they have a very strong sucker that they can suck and stick on to the flows of these fast flowing streams. And by this, what they do is they slowly start gripping and they move forward through the streams. And by the time they feed on different organisms and substratums that are on these rock surfaces in the stream beds. Okay. Normally the stream beds are rock surfaces only. So one of the predatory behavior, I mean not predatory, escape behavior they have is that they can release the suckers. So they don't have to move around water to free from predators or move from predators. But what they interestingly do is that if we try to approach this tadpole, what they do initially is that they will release the sucker. The moment they release the sucker, the fast flowing stream will wash them down and they'll escape from the predator. So they have this mechanism, and that mechanism is just because of the powerful suckers. So these are the diverse type of frogs. I hardly picked up few frog species with different morphology and different ecosystem and different behavior, so that you could understand what is the diversity of frogs, what is the ecological evolution, the ecology and evolution that has gone into these frogs of Western Ghats. So conserving them requires a very big strategy, because it's not easy, because we are not targeting frogs or species with similar behavior, similar morphology, or with similar habitat or similar breeding behavior and all. So they all are different. They all have evolved to be different because they are in different climatic zone. They are evolved in different microhabitat conditions, and this makes it most challenging. So that raises our question: how do we save these frogs? So you understand that now with many multiple species I have put up in the slide, you understand that there are frog species which is every frog species has challenged from climate change. Some of them are very much threatened by climate change. You understand that each microhabitat is important. There are frogs that survive in each of the microhabitat. So any anthropological pressure by human beings altering the habitat is going to directly impart a big effect on these frogs. We know there is invasive species of plants are there, invasive species of animals are there. We have invasive species in an ecosystem that is largely feeding all the native species. We also have pathogens. If you go and check the web, there is a paper written by us when we were in Rajiv Gandhi Center for Biotechnology in 2011. We found out chitin fungus in frogs of Western Ghats. So this is one of the fungus that has wiped out entire frog population of South America. This wiped out some 90% of frog species of South America. They had to put a large effort to collect frogs and breed them in vitro in an in vitro facility to bring them back. So fortunately for us, though this fungus in what we found in Western Ghats was of a different strain, there was not much of virulence for that. They were not killing frogs at that faster rate. Our frogs are somehow adapted to these conditions, so they are somehow saved. But these threats are always there. So to conserve these frogs, we need to take a larger steps to try to conserve each and every microhabitat that we find around. If you look at around your house, there are a lot of bushes. So normally when I was a student, I was a researcher, I go to forest and I ask to staff to that, I'm looking for frogs. The first place they take me is a pool of water or a puddle of water or a swamp. They say, we hear a lot of frogs from here. No, it's not there at all, because it's only a very few species that you find in such habitat. And much of the species that you find in that habitat are not endemic to Western Ghats. They are not the ones prioritized to be conserved. But where do we find the other frogs? You find it in the bush around your houses. You just go out when it is raining that is the start of monsoon, you'll find frogs around your houses, in the bushes, in the trees, all around. But all you have to need is to listen to them. You need to, if you can listen to them, you can understand there are frogs all around this microhabitat. So when you cut a bush around your house, you are threatening their habitat. So we need to conserve all this microhabitat that you find around. It's a large Herculean task, I understand, but still, every grass matters at this point of time if you want to conserve frogs. We need to reduce this anthropological pressure that the growing human population is exerting on the habitat. We need to have a check on this invasive species. If you look at any of the larger concerns that we have, starting from the man-animal conflict to anything, all these are caused. There is a larger role for invasive species to play around. That's a huge scenario, the huge topic to discuss now. So I'm not taking that side. And we also have pathogens. So one of the interesting things that you need to understand is that our frogs are safe because they are not introduced to any of the microorganism that is found elsewhere in the world. So one important thing that comes to here is issue is that if a foreign national who have been handling frogs and others come here and he without wearing a glove is trying to handle frogs here, it's a big threat. So tourism brings people to Munnar and other part of area, and one of the biggest threat in this area is that when foreign tourist comes and they try to handle species here, it's a big threat. They are going to introduce our frogs to much of the threats of this microfaunas from outside the world, because they are carrying it in their nails, in their fingers, tips, all comes around. So we need to take care of multiple scenarios, because conserving any of the species in Western Ghats is not quite easy, because it's a larger scenario. It's not like anywhere else in the world. We have a large diversity. Each are adapted to different habitat. Each have a different strategy of breeding, ecology, and behavior. So we need a larger understanding of, first of all, we need a larger understanding of what they are, where they are, and what are they about to conserve. So we have a lot of role to play, because as if I said, larger time of us has been gone to conserving larger animals. We have been just started focusing on lesser species, but we need to cover this ground very fastly to protect them. So I'll end there. It is a lot of time I've taken. Thank you. Thank you for the time you have given me. I'm free to questions.
No, sir, we also have a small session by our project staff. So
Yeah,
the question section discussion can be made at the end of the session. Okay, so thank you so much, Sujith sir, for your valuable and informative talk about frogs and their importance. So thank you so much, sir. Now I invite Ms. Sorry, Nidhi. Now I invite Mr. Nidhi and Ms. Simila, Project Officer and Project Assistant of TIES, to provide an overview about frogs of Munnar. Both of them are currently working on development of a bioacoustic tool for monitoring amphibian diversity in Munnar Landscape, Western Ghats, India. So I invite Nidhi and Simla for the session.
Hi all, I think I'm audible.
Yeah, you are.
You're audible.
I am Nidhi, Project Officer at Tropical Institute of Ecological Science for the CWS project, which currently works on development of bioacoustic tools for monitoring the amphibian diversity in Munnar Landscape, Western Ghats, India. Our project partners are Center for Conservation of Bioacoustics, Cornell Lab of Ornithology, USA, and Biometrio.earth, Germany. And our funding partner is Center for Wildlife Studies, Bangalore. And I'm just here to give a small overview on our project and of frogs of Munnar. As we must be knowing, the Munnar landscape is a higher elevation of
Hello, Nidhi.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. The slide was not changing. So, as we must be knowing, Munnar is located at a higher elevation of 1,200 meters above, and it is recognized as World Heritage Site and as a biodiversity hotspot. The Munnar landscape is unique and geologically fragile area with significant number of flora and fauna coming under IUCN Red List. It is also rich in amphibian diversity, particularly frogs. As Sir has mentioned earlier, I'm not going to and all this. In Munnar we have about 62 species. Next slide. The importance of frogs in an ecosystem as a predator predator and prey. Environmental health indicators, nutrient cycling, and ecosystem maintenance. That contributes to scientific and medical research, and also the pollination and seed dispersal. The unique features of Munnar landscape includes freshwater ecosystems, natural, artificial, and aquifers, and also the mountain grassland, shola, and evergreen patches that makes specific habitats for this species. And also it's a higher elevation, which creates a cool and humid climate. Also the undisturbed and varied microhabits. Going to the amphibian diversity in Munnar, these are some of the frog species seen in Munnar. The first one is anomaly gliding frog, Rhacophorus pseudomalabaricus, and second one is gut tree frog, Ghats astrops. Both are of Rhacophorus family. And the next is great bush frog, Rautus great, Munnar bush frog, Rautus munnarensis, Rautus chlorosoma, green-eyed bush frog. It's a very beautiful bush frog having green eyes. And the others are cricket frogs, night frogs, and also purple frogs. Purple frogs are fossorial frogs. And the threatened species of Munnar, at least IUCN list. This will be handled by Simla.
Myself, Simla, and I've joined the Tropical Institute of Ecological Sciences as a project assistant for the bioacoustic study of Munnar frogs. I'll be continuing from here on. As we can see in the list, this is a list of all the threatened frogs of Munnar based on the IUCN Red List. Almost 26 species are listed here. This includes both endangered and vulnerable species. The challenges and threats that the Munnar landscape goes through. The first one is habitat destruction. Deforestation due to landscape modification and plantation, farming, and tourism are the major threats. Poaching or tadpole hunting of purple frog also has been reported. Climate change, which involves the local weather changes, leads to the irregular rains as well as changes in humidity and temperature. This affects the breeding patterns of the frogs. Diseases like chytridiomyces, as Sir mentioned, has also posed a threat to the frog species. Pollution, chemical and biological, are also a major challenge for the conservation of the species. Plastic waste, noise, light, pesticides, and insecticides from the plantations and invasive species and diseases are among these pollution, are all the pollutants. Over extraction of groundwater from aquifers have also been a major threat for the survival of the species. Almost 42 of the species listed by the IUCN are under the risk of extinction. And this high number highlights that the Munnar is very vulnerable, and therefore it is significant to do research on this landscape. Additionally, climate change affects humidity, microclimates, and ecological niches, and this impacts the region's unique amphibian diversity. The need for conservation indicates frogs indicates the ecosystem quality. They also have evolutionary importance because species like purple frog have an evolutionary position between the aquatic and terrestrial habitats. And if we protect them, we contribute to understanding the evolutionary process in a better way by maintaining ecological balance. Frogs also have a vital role in food web because they are both prey and predators. Habitat protection is another need for conservation. Deforestation for tourism, plantations, and urbanization has led to the conservation of these landscape. By improving community involvement, we can reduce the gap between the lack of awareness within the commons and the researchers. Currently, our project, which is the development of bioacoustics tools for monitoring of amphibian diversity in Munnar Landscape in Western Ghats, India, we are planning to identify the taxonomic identification tool, and it is developed to understand the challenges of identifying frog species in Munnar complex landscape. The challenge of identification of frogs due to color variation within a single species can also be overcome with this particular tool. These advanced techniques will enhance the efforts to protect endangered species, making the identification more accessible to both the common and the enthusiasts. In collaboration with the Cornell Lab of Ornithology, United States of America, and Biometrio.earth, Germany, we are developing an acoustic tool to aid in species detection as well as conservation. Concluding, to raise awareness and promote scientific research, bioacoustics is an essential drive for the conservation efforts, and it ensures that the threatened frog populations are effectively identified and are safeguarded. Offering a free public access to the app enhances the conservation effort, and it will enable the researchers, enthusiasts, and the local communities to easily identify and document the frog species. By advancing these technologies and making them widely accessible, we improve species identification along with ecosystem conservation. Thank you.
So the session is now open for questions, and we invite your queries if you have some.
I hope we can have healthy discussions on this topic. Dr. Sujith have covered, as well as the research scientists of like Niti and Simla has given us. Please open up. I hope it's the time for vote of thanks, since nobody is having any questions regarding these topics. They're covered by Dr. Sujith, as well as Nidhi and Simla. I use this opportunity to thank everybody. To my wonder, what I've seen with Dr. Sujith is he has been traveling, or making us travel along with him towards the evolutionary sequence of amphibians all over the world. Especially, and he came to the ecological timings, as well as the generation or the formation of the frogs. The emergence of the Western Ghats was also discussed. And to my pleasant surprise, I have seen the ability of the frogs for color changing or mimicking, we can say. And we have been given the information that the frog has to be found identified by the calls. And the acoustics in the frog is so important. That is why Tropical Institute of Ecological Sciences is conducting a new study on the bioacoustics of this frog. And another fancy which I got from Dr. Sujith is the concept of sky islands. It was a very new concept for me. I'm a layman in this part of amphibians. Still, I tell you, the sky island formation is actually a very interesting topic which has to be studied with respect to the aspect of climate change. How much we have to be very keen and careful about the changes in the climatic conditions. And moreover, we can see that the galaxy frogs, and they are moving towards the extinctions. And also they see that many of the time we have studied that there is complete metamorphosis in frogs. And it was a new addition for me to see that there are no tadpoles in these galaxy frogs which are seen. They are the endemic. We can see that they are the endemic species, especially for this Western Ghats alone. And like that, a lot of things we are able to know. The parental care in the frogs, etc., was actually well narrated to us. For a layman, even for a layman like me, I could understand the frog diversity of Western Ghats, and also about the evolutionary sequences and all was also discussed by Dr. Sujith. And finally, a word of thanks for Dr. Sujith, because he have been taking us towards the vast plethora of the frogs of Western Ghats. Thank you, Dr. Sujith, for your very, very illustrative and actually it was a very, very the transfer of knowledge, transfer of awareness, we can say, with respect to frogs. Thank you, Sujith, for your time. In spite of all the busy schedules, you used your time. You are able to give us some time for this webinar. Thank you, Sujith. My next words of thanks is for our research scientists Nidhi and Simla. They have been together to Munnar. I was really wondering how they are able to identify the frogs and they're handling their frogs and etc. and etc. Thank you all for, and also we have to see that every time people have to be very, very, very cautious about the eco restoration of all these species. And Sujit sir have been telling us regarding our bushes, in between our courtyard, there are a lot of risks when we clear all these things for the survival of the frogs. Let us join together to see that frogs are actually maintained. They are allowed to live as we live. Thank you all for all the participants as well as the organizers. I congratulate and thank you all for your patient listening to this program. Thank you.